So our first question is, are the results of the study statistically significant? We need to state the hypothesis and conditions and interpret our results. So let's look at our results. We had for N1, 88 women, and X1 is 44. This is the prayer group. N2 is 81, X2 is 21, and this is the no prayer group. So to state, population 1 are the prayed for women. Population 2 is the control. The null hypothesis is that P1 minus P2 equals 0. The alternative, and here we need to be careful, the question was that the alternative is that P1 is greater than P2. In other words, praying resulted in more pregnancies. Or you could write that as P1 minus P2 is greater than 0. So we need to clarify where P1 equals the proportion of women, the proportion of prayed for women who got pregnant and P2 is the proportion of women in the control group who got pregnant. So that's the no prayer group. We will perform a two-proportion Z test for a proportion if conditions are met. So in our plan, we need to check. So random. Yes, the subjects are randomly assigned to treatment groups. Independent. Patient response is independent of each other. And it's an experiment, so there is no need to check our 10% condition. And we know that the patient response, the that this is independent response, we can say the patients were randomly assigned to treatment so these are independent samples. Okay, for our normal check, normal condition, we had N1 equals 88, and the sample proportion was 0.5, N2 was 81, the sample proportion was 0.26. We already actually knew that the number of successes was more than 10, but we'll just do our check. Anyways, 88 times 0.5 is 44. 88 times 1 minus 0.5 is 44. 81 times 0.26 is 21. 81 times 1 minus 0.26 is 60. And so all numbers are at least 10. So we have met the normal conditions for proportion. Okay, so now we're going to do, and once again we had P1 hat equals 0.5, P2 hat equals 0.26, and we're going to use our calculator. Okay, so we are doing a two-proportion Z-test. So under stats tests, we click on number 6. We enter in our number of prayer women for each group, and we are choosing that P1 is greater than P2. So there's more pregnancies for the prayer group than for the control group. And then we can go ahead and calculate, and that is what we get. We need to record our test statistic and our p-value. Okay, so from the data that we got off our calculator, the test statistic I've written down as Z equals 3.214 from here, and our p-value says 6.55, so that rounds to 6.6 times 10 to the negative 4, which becomes 0.00066. So in our conclusion, the p-value, we will compare our p-value to alpha, and I think we forgot to mention, we will use our alpha of as 0.01, in other words, a 1% significance level. Okay, so in other words, we only have 1% chance. If our null hypothesis is correct, there's a 1% chance of getting a type 1 error, in other words, of rejecting it when it is correct. So using that, we can say that since the p-value 0.00066 is less than alpha, which was 0.01, we reject the null hypothesis at the 1% significance level, and conclude there is strong evidence that the difference in pregnancy rates is not due to chance. Now for part B of our question, which reads, does the study show that intercessory prayer causes an increase in pregnancy for women undergoing in vitro fertilization? Why or why not? Now, if you recall, to be able to make inferences about cause and effect, we had to have a randomized assignment to treatment and to various treatments. And in this case, we do. So we should be able to make conclusions about cause and effect. However, we have to think about other possible causes. So for B, so here's your homework. I'm just going to make some space here. Okay, so our response to B. This study shows that intercessory prayer may cause an increase in pregnancy. However, so I'd like you to take a minute and think about what might be other influences here. So one thing is that it is unclear if the woman knew, so if the woman knew they were in a treatment group. If they found out other people were praying for them, then their behaviors may have changed. So in other words, in this study, yes, we have a control and a treatment group. However, it's not clear whether this is a blind study. And they could have, and made sure they used a blind study. They could have also had a placebo group where they were told, in fact, two placebos. They could have had one that was told that they were being prayed for. In addition to the two we had, they could have had one that was told they were being prayed for, and another that wasn't, and then one that was being told they were not being prayed for, but actually were. So you could look at placebo effects in this situation as well. So here is your homework assignment, and we will look at some of those questions in class next day.